Hello, I'm Niyanta Chauhan from IGCSE 10, and today's episode is one we've truly been looking forward to. We're honored to be joined by a leader at the helm of one of the world's most trusted education networks, Dr. Ben Schmidt, Global Director of the International Network at Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Dr. Schmidt's work shapes how millions of students around the world experience learning, from curriculum and pedagogy to assessments and values. At GIIS, many of us engage with the Cambridge curriculum every day. But what truly defines it? What values guide it? And how is it evolving to meet the challenges of a changing world? In this episode, we will explore Dr. Schmidt's personal journey, his vision for the future of education, and how Cambridge is helping shape not just successful students, but compassionate global citizens. Dr. Schmidt, welcome to the SmartCast. We're honored to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Let's begin with your own personal journey. From your early days as a learner to your current role, leading one of the most influential education networks in the world, what first drew you to education and what continues to inspire you in this field?
My own school in the southwest of Germany was a very, very traditional school where the first foreign language that I learned was not English but Latin, and then it continued to English and then Greek, ancient Greek. So I grew up in that tradition and I continued at university studying languages, philosophy, literature, history, and so on, very much with a mind of pursuing an academic career path. But then what changed things is when in my 20s, I got very depressed, clinical depression. And at that point, what got me out of that is a friend of mine saying, you need to look not to what you're interested in, but how you can make benefit for other people. And that orientation is what got me out of that depression because it gave me purpose again. And that is when I started looking at experiences that I had working with students in a teaching capacity. And that is ultimately when I then decided to go into education. And that really changed things. What he also said at that point is that in order to do that, he said, you need to acquire some more practical skills that help you in the real world. I then studied law. That was very helpful. That is one of those kind of skills, the knowledge that also is powerful, right? And so acquiring powerful knowledge with an intention to make a positive difference is not only, I think, the right thing to do, but in my case also got me out of a kind of quite bad depression.
That's such an inspiring journey, Dr. Schmidt. It's amazing to see how your past experiences shows how you are today. And building on that, I'd love to ask about how students fit into this vision. In GIIS, we are encouraged to be self-directed learners. So how is Cambridge redefining the student's role, not just as recipients of knowledge, but as active participants in shaping their own learning journeys?
We call it active learning. Working with thousands of schools around the world, we're not narrow in our view of what good teaching and learning is, what kind of pedagogical style you need to use, but whatever it is we're saying needs to be active learning. And active learning, we don't mean people kind of jumping up and down in the classroom and moving around, but active in the mind. And that is different because if you are a passive recipient of knowledge, as you say, it basically means that you are trained to just repeat information or words that someone told you. And that means you basically become a parrot who can repeat stuff but doesn't know what they're saying. So in order to really acquire knowledge, gain skills, and so on, one needs to be very active in doing it. And so one of the things is that the Cambridge curriculum is challenging. It means you have to often think hard. We use problems that are not trivial in the sense that it's a problem and then you have a formula and then you go, okay, that's the answer. But often we include what are called wicked problems. In other words, problems that do not have an obvious solution, where sometimes you go, you can't solve that, but you still have to try, right? And that is when you think hard, and that is where you need to think for yourself. It also means that we have to go into depth. It means we need to understand not just on the surface level, what are the facts, what are the answers. Mind you, facts are important, right? We need that. But we need to understand beneath the surface, what are the causes, what are the conditions that come together to make something happen? What is this really about?
Yeah.
In economics, for example, what is the interplay between available resources and scarcity? And how does that, that is such a core question. Or in biology, which you study, the role of DNA and heredity, right?
Yeah.
That is what it comes back to. Because that is what enables you to not only answer things that are already in the textbook or in the curriculum, but rather in the future, of course, you will come across things that are not in the textbook, right? Of course you will. But what is it that will help you solve the things, the problems that are outside the textbook or come up with innovation? It is that you understand in depth, because then you say, okay, I've never come across this particular thing. I don't know the answer, but I know how to figure it out. Let me try.
It's really empowering to hear how students are being encouraged to take responsibility of their own education. And of course, a big part of that comes from the tools we use, which brings me to technology. Technology is transforming the classroom. How is Cambridge leveraging innovations like AI and personalized learning tools to enhance teaching while keeping the human element central?
If we look at AI and teachers, we believe, as with students, that we need to get into a co-pilot situation, whereby artificial intelligence tools support what we want to do, not replace and not dominate. With any technology that comes, it's important that the development of technology has a momentum behind it, both financial and in terms of also people investing in it, their own skills and so on. It has a momentum that is larger than any individual. And in that sense, it's like the weather. We can't directly influence it, but we can be prepared for it. We can work with the weather. And that means that whatever the technology of the day is, we want to be in a position to master that technology. Because if we don't master that technology, we'll be serving it. But then the question becomes, how do we use it? And for that, especially for if you're now like you in a student position, when the artificial intelligence has reached a stage of being widely available, to develop the critical skills around how to utilize it. What is it? What can it do? What can it not do? How can it enhance what we want to do? And be sure that that is used for a human purpose.
I'm sure. It's really reassuring to see that with all these advancements, the human element remains central. So, speaking of the whole person, we students today are more than just academic performers. Students today are juggling more than academics, from creative pursuits to community engagement and personal development. How can global systems like Cambridge better support this holistic vision of success?
I think there are two elements to that. First of all, you're absolutely right that it is important to have that, what you call holistic development across multiple lines. And it's not always easy to kind of juggle all of that. The academics themselves, in terms of, if we look at Cambridge subjects where you learn kind of a particular discipline, a subject, etc., does that by having a strong focus not only on the knowledge, but also on the deep understanding, the development of skills and competences. And there is something, it's a very much an element of personality development to challenge yourself to engage with content that is hard, with problems that don't have a ready solution and so on. That is how you also develop personality,
Yeah.
very, very much. Then, especially at the stage that you're at now at IGCSE, we encourage a very wide range of different subjects that are available, and therefore schools have the ability to choose what is right for their students, and students have the ability, like you did, to choose particular subjects where you want to emphasize, others that you want to explore. And that's important, not only that you get kind of a base understanding of important things for the future, but also to be able at that point to explore where your strengths lie, where your passions lie, and so on. So that is another element of encouraging, how Cambridge encourages that personality development by giving you the opportunities to find out, is this something that I'm interested in, right? Is this something that I'm passionate, am I good at it, and so on. And then in the future to have the chance kind of to make choices based on that. And then, of course, we're very much conscious that the academics themselves, that there must be time for other things in the day, right? That are not necessarily then subject to an exam or an assessment and so on. And that is very much supported. But where we're also going is subjects like global perspectives, which are very much around interdisciplinary skills, working with others, the ability to combine perspectives, the global and the local perspective, etc., which not only teach important skills, but to my mind are very important also for the development of one's kind of personality.
The idea of being successful is, I'm sure many would agree, is being well-rounded and values-driven. And one of the most important values of our time is sustainability. The idea of sustainability is becoming central to education systems. How is Cambridge embedding environmental awareness and a sense of global responsibility into its curriculum and values?
Climate education is something that we're taking very, very seriously. And we're developing a number of kind of curriculum programs around that. But more importantly, as we are reviewing existing syllabuses and curriculum, we make sure that that is embedded across different subjects. And it already is, but we're making that ever stronger and stronger. Because there's so many dimensions to that in terms of what that really means and addressing the climate crisis. The global awareness and mindset that you mentioned, I think is very, very important. And the global perspective syllabus is a very, very direct answer to that, I think. It's a good subject and one that helps with that tremendously. Personally, I think we also need to think beyond sustainability. We need to take seriously the idea that that perhaps in the future there are very credible scenarios in which the current severe weather events, for example, that we're seeing are only the beginning, like the flickering of that indicates wider system collapse. We've breached 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries already, and that sets in motion dynamics that are not completely understood, but which have the possibility to set us up for very problematic developments. And so beyond sustainability, the question is also resilience. And how can we build in resilience in the future, on a personal, but more importantly on a collective level. That is why I think, by the way, that 2 other developments are very important. One is the one towards kind of mental health and well-being. Because in a situation where the outer conditions become more problematic, where perhaps systems that we take for granted break down. Just now we had large power cuts across all of Spain and Portugal, and suddenly people were left, and in that situation, unless we have the emotional and the social skills to pull together rather than be divided, right? So that's a very, very crucial skill for the future to have, that we have the emotional resources and awareness, that we understand how to calm ourselves down when we get too upset, for example, how to, when a conflict breaks out, be skilled at de-escalating it, kind of calming one's own anger and hatred, for example, and being able to forgive and skillfully de-escalate. when there are problems that seem really urgent and difficult to solve, how we can work with people that we also disagree with. Those are hugely, hugely important skills that we need, that are at first sight not directly related to kind of solving the climate change and so on, like in a way that sustainability is, but in the kind of world that we're in, it's important that we have them so that collectively we have the resilience to deal with whatever disruptions come.
It's amazing to see how these values are being woven into the curriculum. And I'm sure many of our listeners, and including me, agree with whatever you have said. And finally, for students who have just appeared for their IGCSE exams or will be appearing next year, what are some tips you would offer to help them stay motivated and balanced and confident? Not just while preparing for exams, but in becoming truly future-ready learners.
Do you mean preparation for the exams or kind of the motivation to go beyond that?
Anything, both. I mean, it's important to stay afloat in education and do your best. Yes,
of course. So examinations, especially IGCSE, are a snapshot in time of what you've reached. And an opportunity to test yourself in terms of the level that you reached, and to demonstrate that, and also to get feedback, of course. The IGCSE examinations themselves are important for that, but it's important to kind of keep it in context, that they in and of themselves will not determine the course of your future life. And that's important in order to kind of calm down and relax about that. So you want to be in the right kind of balance between kind of too relaxed and too anxious. The simile that Lord Buddha gave when he was asked how to meditate is very much, I think, appropriate here. A musician asked him, he said, so how should we deal with this kind of focus and concentration, or should we be relaxed? And he said, when you play your lute, like a string instrument, does the music come best when the string is very loose or when it's really, really tight? And he said, neither. It needs to be not too loose and not too tight. And he said, just like that, you should meditate, with good focus, but not too tight so that you come tense, but also not too relaxed that you don't care. And it's a little bit similar with that. You need to kind of get yourself into that mind state of where you're focused but relaxed. And so therefore, this is where the self-awareness comes in, kind of the emotional skills that we need also for resilience. It's about self-awareness and self-correcting. If you find yourself becoming too tense, then you need to become more relaxed. In other words, maybe take a break, right? Do something else. Or contextualize. It's not the end of the world, right? This is not going to determine my life. But then if you find you become a little bit too relaxed about things and kind of goof off or something like that, then you say, oh, hold on. It is important to be successful. I want to have a really interesting job. I want to make a difference and impact. And those kind of examinations open doors for me and give me opportunities that I wouldn't otherwise have, so that you remotivate yourself for that. And so therefore, there's not a single tip that you can say either this or that. You have to monitor yourself. Am I getting too focused, intense, and too tense, therefore? Then you need to find ways to relax. And if you're getting too relaxed and kind of don't care, then you need to find ways to get motivated and focused back.
Yeah, I'm sure. A balanced lifestyle is really important, especially if you're working yourself too hard. So thank you, Dr. Schmidt, for such an enriching conversation. You've helped us see education not as a system, but as a living, breathing journey, one that each of us can shape with purpose and passion.
Thank you very much. Good talking with you.
You too. Thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, tune into more on our channel. Until next time, this is Niyanta signing off.